My name is Richard Davis. I am 85 years old. Well, I'm going on 86. And I was born in Iowa. Birthday is October 4th, 1928.
So please tell me about your family background, your family, your siblings, and the schools you went in Iowa.
Well, Iowa is kind of a small old town, one called Mediopolis, and it's one main thoroughfare. It's a small town in Iowa, about 16 miles from Burlington, Iowa, which is on the Mississippi River. And grew up there. My father run a grocery store. And my brother then he left and got married and went someplace else. And I hadn't seen him for a long time till he got drafted into the Marine Corps. And he spent 3 years in the Balboa Naval Hospital because he had pneumonia. And he died last year at 88. My father died at 88, so I only got a couple more years to go.
How did your father deal with that Great Depression and your family?
Pretty good. We ate a lot of potatoes, and we always had a big garden, so there was always something to eat. But other than that, and then he went broke, and then he started doing carpenter work, and we traveled around the country building different things. And it was quite an experience. When I went to school up in the later years, I was in 4 schools in a month in different states.
Oh.
So I was lucky to even graduate. So I was lucky that I was doing as well as I did.
So you
Other than that, it's a great country. I wouldn't want to live anyplace else.
What do you think about the days that you lived around the Great Depression and right now? Can you have some kind of ideas to compare it?
No, we had fun most of the time. It was the years when the kids could go outside till dark. Nobody bothered you. You could shoot cherry bombs and blow cans 15 feet in the air. Nobody bothered you. If you got hurt, you got hurt.
So when did you graduate high school?
1946.
And what did you do?
When I graduated high school,
Yeah.
went to work for Des Moines County, which is where Burlington's at, working for my uncle, who was the county engineer, and worked in heavy equipment till I went into the Marine Corps.
Did you know anything about Korea before you joined the Marine Corps?
No,
Nothing?
not,
Nobody taught you about Korea or Asia?
not a thing, because I was at Camp Pendleton and got transferred to the 5th Marines, and the 5th Marines had just came back from Hawaii. And so I was 20 years old, probably one of the oldest. They were all 18 years old, I think. And so then we got on the boat in San Diego, and the next thing I knew, we were in Korea.
I meant any lesson or history lesson in the high school about Korea. So you knew nothing about Korea.
No, they taught all American history.
So what were you doing when the Korean War broke out in 1950?
I was working headquarters and doing overlays for fire patterns. And that's then taken in, work for S3, take care of the passwords and the countersides in the Marine Corps. So I had a rare experience there one time after we would cross the Yalu, what is it? Not Yalu.
Han River?
Yeah, across the Han River, and I was walking to get to the unit down the railroad tracks, and it was kind of an experience, really, because I looked up one time by myself and there was a Corsair flying over me, and he was flying low enough that I could see the goggles on his face. And he circled me all the way up to the bottom of the field of the hill where my company was at. And nobody bothered me. The next morning we went down to by the railroad tracks and went into the village and captured, I guess, about 250 North Koreans.
Wow.
But they didn't fire a shot. And my sergeant that was in charge, he said, well, you're kind of a dumb one, you know. So he says, you're lucky you didn't get shot. I said, well, they didn't shoot, so that was it.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst experiences.
Did you enlist or were you drafted into Marine Corps?
So I joined.
When?
1948. I signed up then and went to San Diego Recruit Depot. And from there I went to engineer drafting school back on the East Coast because I like drafting and that's what I was supposed to do. So then I got transferred from 5th Marines, or from the engineer battalion to the 5th Marines.
So what was your specialty?
Well, they said when we went in there, I went over with what they call the 1st Provisional Marine Brigade in 1950. And Chesty Puller was the commander.
Chesty Puller, yeah.
Yeah, old Chesty. And we went in there and went through everything. We were under the 8th Army. So we had to do what they tell us to do, so we did. We kind of plugged holes and we rode on the 6 bys all night and then we'd attack in the morning. So it's kind of hairy.
So when did you leave for Korea?
When did I leave for Korea?
Yeah.
June of 1950.
Wow. Do you remember the day?
Yeah.
What day?
6th.
What do you mean, June 6th?
From San Diego.
You left for Korea June 6th of 1950?
Yeah.
Why? What, did you know that the Korean War broke out?
Yeah, they put us all in there. They took everybody from the 5th Marines that just came back from Hawaii. I was going to leave and go see my parents who were living in New Mexico then. And they canceled all the passes. And they told me, you're going to the 5th Marines. And that's the first I heard about it.
It's got to be July 5th.
Maybe July.
July 5th of 1950. Because Korean War broke out.
Well, I guess maybe what? You got to remember, it's not working too good anymore.
July.
Okay, July 5th, 1950, you left for Korea, right?
Yeah.
Where did you arrive?
Busan, I guess. I'm not sure anymore.
And then tell me about it after Busan. What was the first scene that you saw in Korea? How was it? The Korean people, Korean...
I guess the first thing I saw was after we got off, we went into the bivouac area. And then we went to watch we see the older gentlemen with the old top black hats and everything with the long pipes. And that was the first I'd seen. And then the other thing we did in the bivouac area, we did get a lot of children in there. They were looking for food and, of course, candy bars we had, so they loved every bit of it. And they wouldn't leave. That's the first part. And I don't know whether they were homeless or whether they just found something, you know, being they thought we had everything, well, that was probably it.
So what did you think about it when you first seen the Korea?
I thought a lot about the fact that I just left a country that was really, really great. And this country is really, you got to be outside of the United States to appreciate it. Because not every country is like this country. Or like this country used to be.
Okay, so after you arrived in Busan, what did you do and where did you go?
The first thing I think we went into at Busan, we were in bivouac for a week. And then they moved us in to relieve the army. There was occupation forces. And so we took over from them because they had been hit by North Koreans, I guess. And we got into foxholes and we got hit the next morning.
Where, in Busan or where?
Yeah, outside of Busan.
Uh-huh.
We had a perimeter outside of Busan. Hard to remember everything. I try not to remember it because I got a lot of discs at home that I watch once in a while, and then I don't sleep at night. That's about the size of it. But it was an experience I don't want to go through again. And I thought about the people in the Second World War that left their families and never came home. And the only thing I can say is that the reason I was luckier is because that old boy upstairs was looking out for me.
Amen.
And the only thing I got was the frostbite. And we did have to do a few things different, but I did get a North Korean later on when I got called. We had stopped some North Koreans and they had the padded clothing. And so we took their clothing and put them in something, I forget where they put them in something. And so I took the one's hat and I said, man, my hat ain't warm. And I wore his hat for a while till the colonel says, I think you better take that hat off before you get shot.
Right.
So I had a few, I wasn't too smart. Every day, sit in that foxhole and read the Bible and pray.
Oh, you had the Bible at the
Yeah, a
time?
small one. Always carried it with me
Where?
in my pocket.
And
Always read something. And sometimes it didn't matter what it was, as long as I knew he was up there. That's what counted.
do you remember your favorite verse?
Now, I'm sorry to say I don't. I don't go to church much anymore because I figure if that old boy upstairs took care of me there, he'll take care of me here too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to go to church and listen to something that sometimes I don't believe that what they say is the truth. But I believe I am Christian. I don't think I know for one thing I'm not Muslim. That's for doggone sure.
So after Busan, I see you are the chosen few member. That's a Jangjin battle. Jangjin battle. That's the Japanese pronunciation of Jangjin Lake is chosen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see that you are the Jangjin battle member and you have a Star of Godori there. Do you know?
Yeah.
Oh. So after Busan, where did you go? Did you join the Incheon landing?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Tell me.
Well, we went by aboard. They said you're going to go aboard four destroyers, I believe, and they took us in at night, or took us in early in the morning. And we went in by boat, and we got in and attacked Wamidu Island, and we got prisoners out of there. And then we sat there the whole day waiting for the 1st Division to come in.
Did you know that you were actually cutting off the logistic line of North Korean soldiers, North Korean army?
Later on.
Did
yeah.
you know at the time that you were headed to Walmido?
No, not when we were in Busan, we didn't, no. Because I believe General MacArthur made the decision to turn around and make the water landing.
Yeah.
So it was, we'd been sitting there quite a while. But the Army had left a lot of stuff behind when they left. Like they had oil fields or gasoline fields that were buried, ammunition, and a lot of parts for automobiles, trucks. And so we had to go blow up some of the parts and some of some of the ammo.
Was Incheon landing dangerous?
Well, yeah, we were, at that time, I believe Bob Hope was over there, and we were kind of mad because we couldn't get in. Bob Hope was, I believe, in Incheon then. And they said, no, you can't go in, we gotta clear the minefields first. So we said, okay, well, we missed Bob Hope, but it wasn't too great a thing, I don't think. And then we went on to Incheon was kind of hairy at times, because I believe those people lived in tunnels, mostly tunnels. And we really didn't make that thing secure till after we got the big tanks in with the flamethrowers. Then we got the flamethrowers in there and we got them out of there. But
How about from Incheon to Seoul? You were recovering the Seoul, the capital city, and how was the resistance from the North Korean military?
hey, they're smart, they're very good, just like anybody else. I mean, I have to give them very much credit, any of those, because of the fact that you could walk right beside one of them laying in a bean field and he wouldn't move till after you got by him. And it was, you walked, you always had a partner with you. Except that one time when I walked up the railroad tracks.
And
But other than that, I have a great experience of those people, and I very much respect them. We also, at one time, when we got up to the reservoir, that's when we hit the Manchurian, the 6-foot guys. And those people had been trained early years, from what I understood, by Colonel Carlson from the Marine Corps when they had the China Marines. And they were very, very good.
Do you remember any scenes, any kind of situation that you faced on the way to Seoul? You still remember?
Yeah,
Please share that.
well, we run into one little 2 or 3 houses, I guess it was, and there was a North Korean officer, I believe he was an officer, maybe he wasn't, laying in that one, and I walked in and my buddy came in behind me and shot him. He was going to stab me with a bayonet. And they can play dead pretty easy. They don't breathe, they don't do nothing. You can't even see them breathe in the wintertime.
So that was kind of dangerous movement.
Well, it was for me, yeah, but being 20 years old, I was too stupid to understand it. The other thing is, we moved pretty fast all the time.
Yeah.
We would leapfrog.
How was Seoul? When you first saw the Seoul, how was it? Everything devastated or what?
Part of it was very modern, part of it wasn't. I mean, the animals were running in the streets and there was refuse all over. And then in the one part, it was pretty modern. The only thing that really got us is the fact that we finally got a chance to sleep inside once in a while when we got into the palace grounds. And we just getting ready to, get cleaned up and everything. They said, you're going to have to move out. You can't stay here because General MacArthur wants to come in here and we got to film him in the war area. So they put South Koreans on the wall with 30 caliber machine guns and they moved us out of there so he could get filmed in the war area, which is fine, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Were you afraid at the time?
Hell yes, I was afraid. Man, I tell you, I had long hair then. I could stand straight up on my head without any problem. Now I don't have any hair at all. But yeah, you better believe you're afraid. One time, when we were coming out of the reservoir, it was really, this fellow that lives in Minnesota and I were in the same foxhole. And it was probably, the moon was out, it was colder than hell, 30 degrees.
Are you talking about Jangjin battle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the reservoir.
Reservoir,
Yeah.
chosen.
Chosen.
Yeah.
Because the Army told us that we had to motor march all the way up to the reservoir because there wasn't anybody up there. And the information wasn't all too true, I don't think. And so consequently, we got up there and they encircled us. And there wasn't too much you could do about it.
After Seoul, where did you go? Did you go to Wonsan or did you go to Pyongyang?
God, I really don't remember. Honest to God.
Did you take a ship from Incheon and land?
No, we stayed on, after Seoul, we took a ship to Wonsan, yeah, to Wonsan, but we didn't have any problems there
Mm-hmm.
that I could see, and then we started up to the reservoir area, which we had to clean them out. And of course, the different sections of the regiment, like Item Company or Howe Company, would leapfrog each other
Uh-huh.
all the way up because we were drawing fire then. And it was starting to get cold, and it wasn't too bad. We didn't have parkas, but it was cold.
Did you have any close contact with the Chancellor, the colonel?
If they did, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, they were around us, but you know, you never know. They would come at you at night.
Please tell me about the Star of Godory. When the soldiers were praying so that they could have a clear sky.
Oh, we did that every night.
What do you mean you did
Because
that?
they didn't, it was cloudy up there a lot of the times, and the only time that we got any air traffic was when the clouds opened up and they had the boxcars dropping us ammo and food, and the one time we didn't get ammo and we didn't get food, but we did get lifesavers by the jillions, so we ate lifesavers for a long time.
So you pray every night?
Oh, without a doubt. That's probably part of the reason that you get through everything.
Right.
And then I got word at that time that my grandmother had died, and I wanted to go home, and they wouldn't let me go. So
When was it?
that was after we'd been there about 3 months.
What were you thinking when you were in Chosin Reservoir? You are surrounded by Chinese soldiers and damn cold. You don't see any way out.
You don't think about anything. You just say, hey, you had to jump on the operating rod handle of the M1 in order to get it be unfrozen. And then we finally got boxcars dropped sea rations. And of course they were frozen, so we stacked them up in front of us as a wall. But we were attacked probably, they had 3 to R1 or 5 to R1, because I know that every third North Korean carried a rifle, the others didn't carry nothing. Some of them carried grenades.
Chinese.
But I'll tell you what, they know exactly how to use them. And there's nothing that's going to stop them. We did have some come into the CP. Well, the 7th Marines were part of our group too. They came in from the 7th Marines when we were told not to put anything in our sleeping bags, but our feet. And anybody caught with anything but their feet in sleeping bags, the colonel said, I'll shoot you right on the spot. And he meant every word of it, because I think there were 3 guys that came in with no shoes, no parkas in. We had parkas. No parkas, no rifle, no ammo. And I thought the colonel was gonna shoot him right there. Said, what are you doing in sleeping bags? And come to find out, I guess they were told that they could get 50% of the unit in sleeping bags and the other 50% out, but that doesn't cut it. And it's a little hard to be in cold weather like that. It's a little hard to dig in the ground for foxholes. So we use C3 a lot to soften the ground up a little bit so we could dig, but other than that. Also, we did drink probably a lot of sick bay alcohol. So you could lay out on top of the ground naked and never freeze to death.
Yeah. Did you regret?
Going there?
Yeah.
No, I couldn't regret for anything. I had signed my name on the dotted line. And I wasn't drafted, I signed, I joined it, and I took what they give me. And if I didn't like it, I turned around and kept my mouth shut and did what I was told.
How often did you eat at the reservoir? What did you eat? How did you eat?
We didn't eat too much, a lot of lifesavers. But, just before I take that back, just before the reservoir, I think it was Thanksgiving, they did get a hole in the clouds and they dropped Thanksgiving dinner to us with stoves, tents, and everything. And you would get in there after they got it cooked. Half you go in at one time and half would stay out. Put it in your mess kit, and by the time you got to where you were going to eat it, it was frozen solid, so you couldn't eat it, you know.
Yeah.
So you had to sit on it to get it warm half the time.
Sit on the food.
Yeah. You ate what you could. A lot of times you could pull if you found a garden someplace, you'd find a lot of vegetables. And of course, I believe that they turned around and fertilized with human refuse. So consequently, when we came back, a lot of us had worms. And before they would even let us leave, we had to get rid of them worms, tapeworms. But I'll tell you what, it was food to eat. And if you could get the sea rations, after we got down below and you could eat sea rations, there was the old sea rations that were made in 1941, I think.
Yeah.
And you put them in the hot water to get it warm, and the next thing you know, you had hamburgers all over the ceiling as they explode. So sometimes you didn't, but you ate what you could find. I think at that time I was about 179 or 187, something like that. So, but I could move. And we had ammo, we got the ammo dropped and everything, and nobody was happy. I can't say everybody was happy the way we got trapped up there, and we were damn lucky to get out. We lost probably one whole rifle company,
Yeah.
and we lost item company was gone, and we lost a bunch of other stuff. Hell, we were using bulldozers and everything else to get out of there. And they did airdrop a bridge, because they had blown the bridge
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
us.
Tell me about it. Did you see that the bridge was setting up?
So,
No?
didn't
Okay.
get there to see that.
Okay.
The Army engineers, I believe, or the Marine Corps engineers set that up when it landed and got it going, or we'd have never made it. We'd have had to been sliding on snow to get out of there. Had a lot of people die from one shot because it was cold weather.
I mentioned about the Star of Gold-Ori, the badge in your head. How true that story is?
Very true.
Do you know anything about it? Tell me.
Well, I know that the gentleman that designed it was the guy that was in the foxhole with me.
Huh.
And he was the one that thought it up. His name is Ron Kokel.
Could you spell it?
No, I can't. Just like it sounds, Kokal.
Uh-huh.
Kokal, something like that.
Uh-huh. You knew him?
Yeah. Still do. He's still breathing. As we were left behind one night coming out there, and we didn't think we were going to make it.
And?
You can walk pretty fast when you think it's the end of the world. You never know who you're going to run into.
Right.
We were just lucky we run into some of the army down below, and I'll tell you what, it's a hair-raising experience to have your own people shooting at you. They shoot red tracers, and the North Koreans shot green tracers, so we knew who they were. The only other thing that really bothered me was the fact that we had seen some North Koreans up on the ridge, and they looked at them with the field glasses because me and this other guy were watching, and they looked like Marine Corps people. They had Marine Corps uniforms, but we didn't realize that who it was until they squatted. And when they squatted down, we knew that they had killed 5 Marines and taken their clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time, why, we didn't hesitate to shoot them.
How close between you and Chinese and North Koreans at the reservoir? When was the closest?
They'd come right into your foxhole, and you had to do what you do. And we had a couple guys that threw grenades at them, and we had a couple guys that, when they hit us, they just pulled the pin on the grenades and got killed themselves, but they took them with them. And a lot of people died on both sides.
Yes.
To have to search dead bodies. And for the longest time when I came back, I couldn't even pick up a dead bird. I couldn't even come close to it, but I've kind of overcome that now. Searching for information. I tell you what, I don't, if I was, had to go over there now, I think I'd turn around and run the other way.
Mm.
I really would.
Mm.
As an older person, I don't think it, war doesn't really settle anything.
Uh-huh.
Only the one wins and one loses. But they both lose in the long run.
You're right.
There's too many people, too many young people die before they needed to die
Amen.
because of a hell of a lot of politicians in the countries. I don't say that you shouldn't have a military force, and I think you should have a military force, but I don't think, I don't know, maybe I think wrong, but these people, young people that live in the cities of this country, like Chicago, and I guess maybe I shouldn't say anything, but if you take those people that turn around and kill 15, 20 people every night because they belong to a gang, get a hold of them, put them into service and say, hey, go do your thing.
Yeah.
But straighten up and follow the laws of the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had to. Even over in Korea, they have laws, and you had to go with them. You know, you can't just. The only thing I think that was really funny to my estimation was in the early part of Korea over there, and I had never realized it before, but the huts and the lower class people dig tunnels under their house, and they build a fire in one end, and it heats the whole damn house.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, somebody needs to make some money out of that in the United States.
What is Korea to you now?
It's a beautiful place after I looked at your book. If I had the money, I'd probably go back and see it because it would be completely different.
You never been back to Korea?
No,
Do you know what happened to Korea after you left?
yeah.
What is it?
Well, they got a lot of help from a lot of places, and they still have the DMZ there. It's no different.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a half a country, and you're never going to stop that unless you get a hold of
Right?
the young man that's running it and hang him up to dry. Because I don't know, it depends on what you want, depends on what you want to do. It depends on how well you like the country. If you're born and raised there, then you love the country. If you're not born and raised there, then it's different. Like they let other people into this country and they don't follow the laws, but they want to start their own like the Muslims. And I'm not against any other religion, but I think if you're in a country that's as free as this country's supposed to be, you should be able to pray and be religious the way you want to be. But don't push it on somebody else, because this country was founded that way, that, hey, it was a religious thing years ago.
But don't you think the U.S. is now pushing other countries to be like Americans?
They could be if they wanted to be. Not exactly like America, but they could be free and be able to do what they would like to do and follow the laws if they got decent people that they put in office. Right now, I don't think we got too many that are decent.
Do you know the Korean economy right now and Korean democracy?
No, I haven't followed it that much. I'm sorry, but I left and I was happy to get back. But I thought we did the job that we were sent there to do. Got those people that wanted to take over the other part of the country stopped them cold. But we lost. We lost a lot of people, they lost a lot of people.
Yes. Do you know the Korean economy now is 13th largest in the world?
Hey, they should be.
Why? Why it should be?
Hey, they're making cars, they're making everything.
Right. Do you know that?
Yeah.
And Korean democracy is one of the most vibrant in Asia.
Well, you can tell that when you see pictures of it.
What is the impact of your service in your life? How did it affect your life after you come back from Korea?
Well, it was a little different, I guess. It wasn't all bad, but when I got out of service, I got out after 3 years and went into the reserve. When I got out of the service, they gave me $300 and said, goodbye.
Have a good day.
Goodbye. You're on your own, you know. They don't take, for some reason, I can't say they're bad, but it's all in the part of bringing up the child that grows up to be a man that goes into service, or the woman. They gotta be able to take responsibility. I had a chance to go from the service to 4 years of college. But at the time I got out, I said, I'm not going to college. I'm too smart for that. So I didn't go to college, but I went to a trade school and I learned a trade that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't regret what I've done because it was my decision. And I don't say that the government is at fault because it was my decision. They laid it out in front of me, but I didn't take what I was offered.
Mm-hmm.
Now I went to a college, my folks lived in Denver at that time, Aurora. And when I come back, I wanted to go to college, so I went to DU. And I talked to a counselor and he looked at my grades and he says, you want to study engineering? I said, well, yeah, I'd like to. He says, well, you're gonna have to take 3 years of mathematics and other stuff before we can ever let you in. He didn't say, why don't you just go start college and figure out what you'd want to do after you start. So there, I didn't listen, I didn't talk to anybody else, I just took the one thing, and he said, we can't take you till you get 3 more years of math and all this stuff.
How do you want to remember chosen few, chosen battle?
I guess in the best perspective, it was my fault that I signed if I wanted to sign. I took what they give me and I have no regrets. It did make me grow up. I was 18 or 19, I think it was 20 by the time I went up to Seattle to a guard company up there for a while. And then I went to engineer battalion. I went to school for 3 months. And then they put me back in another place in Pendleton. And I have no regrets on the service time, because I think everybody has to take their own way and learn their own way. And if you can't take it, if you go in there with a chip on your shoulder, you might as well kiss it goodbye, because you're going to come out of there different than what you went in.
If you are given chance to go back to Korea, would you go?
Sure. I think I enjoyed, I guess the one thing that I didn't like, and I enjoyed it because I talk about it a lot, is the little children that were children when I was there, which are grown into men now. And they, at that time, at 6 or 5 or 8 or 9, they fainted for themselves because they had nobody else to help them. So they became responsible in their own way. So that is the thing that I understand, that if you're not responsible, you can't blame somebody else for what you don't have. Monetary things are not always the greatest, but monetary things do help. But you have to set your mind at one thing and one thing only. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. If that doesn't work, then you find something that does. Or you sit back and you take what you get.
Are you proud that your service resulted in the wonderful accomplishment by the Korean people?
You better believe it. I had there was a lot of nice people over there that I enjoyed. Even though you didn't understand them, I enjoyed the older men with the horsehair hats and that. But we did have one older man, and that blew my mind, because I forgot to tell you about that, we were cleaning up gasoline fields, and we had a 55-gallon drum that was about half full of gas.
Yeah.
And this little guy came in with an A-frame. Skinny legs, skinny body. I bet he didn't weigh but 97 pounds. And we had an interpreter, and he talked to him. And he took him over, and he says he wants to carry that gas drum out of here. I says, fine, that's okay. If he can lift it, he can have it. I said, I don't think he can lift it. Made a liar out of me awfully fast. Because he took that pole, he strapped that thing on the back of that 55-gallon drum on it. And he took that pole in his hand, and them legs were going like this, but he got them up straight, and he jumped down the road with it. I don't know how far he went, because I didn't watch him. But it's interesting, because those people are proud people. They're proud of what they have. And that's the one thing that, I don't know, I think the younger people today are missing out, because it doesn't seem like all of them are proud of what this country is.
This is wonderful interview, very good stories, and I really respect your perspective. Add anything to this interview?
No, except I think you people are proud people, and if I was a young man, I would go back there without a chance.